Thanks.
Thanks.
Well, that was an incredibly rousing introduction. Thank you so much. Look, it's great to be here at Startup Grind. It's been one of my favorite events to kind of get to be at, over the years. And I'm thrilled to have Mike here too. It's funny as he introduced me, kind of having worked at a couple of these companies that, were small back then and have now become really large. I got to know Mike because he was on a very similar journey, building widgets and this thing called UserPlane that AOL bought. And then AOL was a much bigger player in social back then than people may remember. Mike, I remember getting tapped to try to turn around MySpace back when I was between Facebook and Twitter and was watching them kind of go with a big blank space that, you could imagine anything in there. And since then, Mike's become a really close friend and collaborator. I led an investment last year that we just announced in a company called Mammoth Media that spun out of science that is a real future mobile entertainment company that tries to bring apps like Yarn and Wishbone that build kind of daily micro entertainment experiences to your phone. And we really think, in some ways that's a big part of the next wave of what's coming in social engagement as everybody's time and attention has moved onto these mobile platforms. So I'm just hoping we'll have a few minutes to kind of talk today about where media and social are going, where they've come from a little bit, given that Mike's seen a lot of the history firsthand, and what's coming up, and then we'll talk about where some of these trends like crypto and AR and everything might lead us beyond as we think about new forms of engagement. So Mike, it's great to be here. I wonder if you could just describe science a little bit and sort of when you started science, what you were thinking the opportunity was.
Sure. So after maybe 15 years of running companies and being an active angel investor, particularly in Los Angeles, I wanted this environment where I could take people I knew that had expertise in building and developing businesses and really surround them with entrepreneurs and see if we could build some hit companies. Yeah. And science begins with a thesis. So we look forward into kind of sectors that we're interested in. The first sector we looked into was digital commerce and digital brand building. And that was kind of a 2-year journey. Then we did marketplaces. Then we moved into mobile. And now we're moving into crypto. So it's a really exciting environment because when we choose something, we staff really heavily around it. We bring in a bunch of experts, and then entrepreneurs come in, move into our environment, and we help them build these companies.
Got it. So you've been lucky with some big hits, like he mentioned, Dollar Shave Club, Dog Vacay, which sold to Rover. Can you talk a little about like, hey, we should do like, how do you go from, hey, we should do some stuff with digital native brands to actually building one and finding something and really helping build it like Dollar Shave Club?
Well, I think if everyone in here is kind of an entrepreneur, and when you think of the entrepreneurs that you have spent a bunch of time with, one thing that at least I came to the conclusion of is that rarely are these great entrepreneurs we think about well educated in the sectors when they first go into them, right? Yeah. Like there's kind of a misnomer that like the people that you think about as these like industry leading titans in technology started there. They didn't start there. And after working with a lot of entrepreneurs, what I realized was one big success factor for anyone starting a company is rapid learning. How can you learn faster than other people? How can you accumulate more knowledge? Because in many cases, there's not that many huge experts as these things emerge. So whether it was social or in our case, commerce or crypto, these are, at the time of us getting involved in them, there weren't that many experts, right? Just at the time as you getting into social, you were writing the roadmap as you were building it. You were learning as you were doing. And so what I look for now is saying, okay, if we're going to choose an area like digital commerce, how can we learn? Right, and what's neat is because we've been in the industry a while, we get access to a lot of people that tell us a lot of things. Yeah. So we collect a whole bunch of knowledge, we build teams around it, then we find entrepreneurs that are passionate, and our goal is to bring the knowledge that we've accumulated as a team into that entrepreneur, into that business, and see if they can go become successful.
Oh, that's great. And one of the things that I've always remembered about science really like is a lot of services you built that actually your companies were able to utilize. What were some of those services that you found were like really successful that you could really apply to a company and help it grow?
So we're certainly strong as it relates to operations and financing and biz dev and corp dev, but we really focused heavily on growth.
Got it.
And so I think as somebody that's gone through the journey of building a company, one thing that I realized as an early entrepreneur was that there's a lot of people that had a lot of secrets, and those secrets led to a lot of growth and success. Yeah. And it's hard as an early stage entrepreneur to get access to those secrets. Well, one of those secrets is growth.
Yeah.
And as you do more and more deals and work with more and more entrepreneurs, you'll start hearing things where you're like, wait, that's where you got your first 100,000 customers? And you'll start, and so we started accumulating these stories. And then we'd meet with these entrepreneurs with these visions, and they would have no concept of growth. And so we started saying, look, let's build a really strong lab around growth, and then let's bring this knowledge and these tactics to those entrepreneurs so they can go become successful. And that became a huge value proposition for our companies.
Yeah, and I mean, having gotten to work at the companies I have, it's incredible how understanding growth and metrics and how that all ties together makes such a difference for a company's trajectory. And when you're early, getting that aim up just a little bit makes all the difference. If it's been a few years already, is there like one secret you could reveal to the crowd that has been like an insight that you found was like really helpful for one of these companies that you guys built in science?
So, I would assume you would see this similarly, but you know, when you read these headlines on TechCrunch of companies coming to this massive level of scale, you somehow think that like they built this thing and it just like this, all these people just showed up and all these downloads showed up and it's just this like miracle of perfect product perfection, right? You know, what we came to the conclusion of, and what I see over and over again, and I'd be curious if you agree, which is that great founders that find great growth typically focus on one platform. Like whether they're extracting it through search or social or video or viral or invites or whatever they're focusing on, they find one thing that works and they get really good at dominating that one specific growth tactic. And the companies that I've often seen have done a very poor job have 30 things they're trying. They're never getting good at any one of those growth tactics. You know, one way to think of your journey as an entrepreneur is that you're building a service, and chances are those people that you need to attract are somewhere already. It's not like you're really onboarding new users to the internet. They're already here, right? Which inevitably means that if you're building something that's going to take their time or take their money, they're spending it somewhere and they're spending their time somewhere, which means your goal is to find where they're doing that and steal them. Right? I mean, it's like, these are not new people. Like, they already exist. Unless you're going after like 12-year-olds getting iPhones. You know, fundamentally, these people are already doing something and you need to take them. Right? And when I spent more and more time with great CEOs, and I'm curious if you saw this too, they all found some pocket of people they stole at a very early moment that they didn't tell anyone about. And it became a big component to their success.
No, we talk about this a lot as like finding this unfair advantage in the early days. And what is that one wedge where you can figure out how to get in front of people in a way that's repeatable and scalable and nobody else can. And sometimes that's SEO. Sometimes that's, LinkedIn figured it out through a very tight viral loop that actually, we spent so much time on the entire viral experience to get more people into the network that all of a sudden, once you have a big network, there's so much you can do with it. But the other piece is what happens once the person shows up that I've found actually makes a huge difference too, is kind of channel to onboarding fit. Because if you actually can get a bunch of people, you can get a great press spike, or you can get someone to go viral in the App Store or anything else, but then you actually can't onboard those people to get active, that's really hard too. That's one of the things that really impressed me with Dollar Shave Club, is how quickly they got you into like the simple habit, cheap blades, and then all of a sudden you end up with this recurring subscrition that goes on for a long time.
This army built. And social products, as you know, are way harder fundamentally than commerce. So like, yes, there's one thing when you're buying a utility and you absolutely have to have toilet paper delivered every month to you because you really do need that product. And so you're going to buy it one way or another. It's a whole other thing when you're signing on to a new social product and those first few days of engagement and the content that you input into that system and the friends that you connect with are absolutely critical on whether you come back day 5 or 6. That's much harder.
Yeah, no, that's right. And we were just talking backstage a little bit about social in the world, and there's this great article in Wired on Facebook that's kind of it's like a 15-minute read, but it really is an interesting lens into sort of what Facebook's facing today, which is, oh my gosh, there's 1.5 billion people on the product every day. The world's information flows through them. Like, now what? It didn't quite work out, I think, as sort of optimistically as sort of everybody envisioned at the time. But I'm going to go back a little bit, and like, it's amazing how we got here. Like, MySpace started with bands and fans. Facebook figured out your friends. Facebook kind of won the battle, but we're still seeing the bands, fans, influencers play out a lot through YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat. And I know you guys have played a lot in the influencer area too with a couple of the companies you've built. Like, how does this play out? Are these the stars of the future? Are these the actual celebrities? Are they always just going to be these kind of micro celebrities?
Well, I think I think the change in celebrity and influencer culture as how it's connecting to fans is actually a really healthy one.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a kid, I'd watch some TV show and see these perfect people that look perfect with their perfect families doing perfect things, and I felt so disconnected. Like I felt so far away from that reality. And today, whether you like it or not, right, there's all these people that have risen up to a broader sense of celebrity, and they're highly approachable, and you can connect to them and see a much more intimate view into their life. And suddenly you might realize like they don't always look that perfect. And so I think there's actually a positive impact to kind of the de-escalation of celebrity through influencers, YouTube, all these platforms. So I really like that change. You know, one thing that you and I have obviously talked a lot about is what's the influence of social products when you're mixing in celebrity influencers with real people, and does that dilute that social value? Does that increase that social value? Is it now media? Is it intimate? Is it communications? And it kind of confuses the story.
Yeah, it does. And we were just talking about the Snapchat redesign and whether or not it made sense that I used to get to watch Mike's story with his kids and then Kim Kardashian's story and DJ Khaled, and kind of made Mike feel more like a celebrity like, Kim Kardashian and DJ Khaled. And now all of a sudden they're separated. I'm hearing a lot of kids are not very happy with the Snapchat redesign. What does this mean? So like for the future of Snapchat and influencers, like, do you think Snapchat is the future? You're an LA guy. You want to pump an LA company?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to pump LA companies, and of course I love Snapchat. But I think the broader question that I'm asking myself is there was a time at which software generally was not social.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe there were chat rooms inside AOL and some stuff that we build inside user planes, but fundamentally software was not built for social. Then suddenly everyone was building software that only was social. Like the only purpose of it was social interaction. And now I think we've almost said, well, social interaction is important, but maybe it's just everywhere. Maybe it's just a layer now that sits on top of everything. So what I'm not sure about is in the next 5 years, if we see completely new dedicated social platforms, or whether we just see that social is a layer that goes on top of every platform. So similar to the early days of search, it's like suddenly everyone was building search functions. Then they're like, well, Google kind of has the search for search function done, but search as a layer on top of everything actually makes a lot of sense.
Right.
So I think this might switch back, and I'm curious whether or not somebody can really upset the Instagram, Facebook kind of social monopoly as it exists today again, or whether this is, we've just seen the rise of Google and search. We've seen this now in Facebook, and we all shouldn't be building dedicated social products. I question that all the time.
Yeah, look, one of the things that we've been talking about is like, if you assume that these things exist, what do you go build on top of it? And that's kind of what led us to Mammoth Media, which is like new forms of media, new forms of commerce. How are you thinking about sort of what other opportunities or even those opportunities really are available to build now because these platforms are so large?
Well, I think I look at my own behavior, and what I basically find is that I've got this incredibly addicted device in my pocket that's my cell phone. And I want to look at it just all the time. And that's probably not good. But I just feel this need all the time
Lots
to be
of people
checking
are doing it right now.
Right, everyone's just like, oh my God, like, does someone like my post? And so like there's this addiction that we're carrying around with us. I don't think as a society we've understood the ramification of this addiction, right? But then the second thing that's happened is now when I actually pick it up, I'm really fucking bored. Like I'm going into this stuff and I'm like, but there's like, it's all the same stuff. Like I've seen the Boston Dynamics robot dog open that door too many times in the last 48 hours. Like I get it.
So
it's terrifying. I don't need to see it again, right? So then I'm like, wait, I've got this addiction. I'm looking at this thing all the time, but I'm just not getting enough.
Yeah.
Right? And what I don't want to do in the 30 seconds I'm looking at this phone is to go into a Netflix show. Like that's just not, that's not going to work right now. I can't sit down and take in whatever, Stranger Things 2. So what I'm wondering is, what are you going to give me? Like what are you going to give me, right? That's gonna get me my fix of this addicted device in my pocket. And so we looked from the Mammoth perspective at these micro entertainment experiences, areas where you could have somewhat of a satisfying content experience in like sub 30 seconds. And maybe that's just our belief is there's just a new format around this new time sequence in a mobile phone, how you're consuming this. And I think there's tons of room for it.
So if you haven't downloaded Yarn, download Yarn and check it out. So let's talk about some of the new trends that are coming up. I mean, you talked, we'll come to crypto in a second, but if we talked 2 years ago, we were talking about VR. Sure. Like everybody in LA was talking about VR, and that seemed like a trend. I think that's probably dead.
Well, it's not dead. But it's definitely delayed.
Definitely delayed.
It's substantially delayed, right? We'll see what happens when Ready Player One comes out.
Yeah.
I think there will actually be a reemergence of VR after that movie comes out.
That's coming up pretty soon.
I know.
So we'll actually get to call you on that bet pretty soon.
We'll see.
Look, mobile AR, Pokemon Go was a huge hit. True. Sort of faded a little bit.
And arguably, Snapchat was the first at-scale AR company with dynamic filters.
Do you think we're going to see more, or do you think AR is sort of just a little accoutrement on top of mobile?
I think that we're all going to expect that camera lenses will do special things, and those special things will be powered through AR and stickers and all these different things, and you'll just kind of expect it everywhere.
Yeah. But you don't see a new platform, like massive new startups.
I mean, I haven't seen anything super compelling. I've seen some cool uses of AR in industrial use. I've seen some in gaming. I've seen some in entertainment. But I haven't seen something that gets me using it every day. Yeah. And I played Pokemon Go with my kids, and that was super fun. And then some point it just wasn't fun. Yeah. And we just stopped collecting Pokemon. I don't know what happened, right? Yeah. So there was a burnout of it. So I think that the camera use is the most logical use today, and we'll see what we all come up with.
Well, so the last area you mentioned that science has really been getting into right now is crypto. Mm-hmm. And I know it's something that you've actually been digging in very deeply and have been working on some projects and involved in your own ICO. Like, is crypto something that actually addresses some of the social things we're talking about, or is it something brand new that opens up a whole set of new behaviors? How are you thinking about where crypto really takes us?
Well, let's see. So there's so many layers to this whole thing, right? But if we start with the most basic concept, which is this concept of a distributed ledger, this blockchain, one great way that I like to think about it is, in certain cases, we've all now built or participated in companies that are both a service layer and a data pool. So arguably, Facebook is this service layer, and then they sit on this massive data pool. Arguably, a hospital is a service organization that sits on a big data pool of medical records, and maybe Experian is a credit check service that sits on top of all your credit data. I wonder whether in the future we will see almost public utility like blockchains, where they are information stores of all of our collective personal data, where we control access in and out of that data, and then there are service providers that get to access that data. And so you've removed the ownership of the Facebook data out of Facebook and put it into a publicly controlled blockchain or a medical record or credit scores. That actually sounds like a really good idea to me, right? So that's a super logical use for blockchain. It is kind of social, but it's really more personal, right? It's basically saying there's multiple components of your life that exist within the stores of different companies' databases, and wouldn't it be great if that was in a public place that was not controlled by a corporation? So that idea is really exciting. Now, second to that, there's also money, ICOs, token economics, and all these other things that stack on top of this core idea of the blockchain. And right now, everything's crazy, so the whole thing feels completely nuts, but there's a lot of core value in there.
And do you think the core value, ultimately, if you're an entrepreneur building something right now, would it be to build one of these blockchains and data layers? Would it be to build some of the services that sit on top of it? Where will you be able to accrue most of the value?
I mean, right now, if somebody was to reinvent, I don't know, the credit scoring system through a blockchain, I think that's a massive multi-billion-dollar value opportunity. I talk to people in countries who don't have credit scores and are looking to jump over the process the U.S. has used, and they want to go straight to blockchain for credit or electronic medical records. So some of these ideas also are global in nature, and the U.S. may not be the primary adopter of them, but the standards could be super valuable to the entire planet. So I think there's huge opportunities there. There's also massive short-term opportunities in service providers, ICO firms, marketing providers, token trading. So there's all this immediate money that's also available today too, which is honestly super distracting because you have people that are chasing short-term dollars and not really building these billion-dollar opportunities.
Got it. Well, I'm hopeful that science will incubate and build a few more of those too.
Me too.
Thank you so much for joining us on stage, Mike.
Yeah.
It's been a great conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.